really sort of backs up the African Union Year of Women's Empowerment. And the campaign is called Poverty is Sexist, because what we found from our research is that actually the barriers that militate against women tend to be structural from a social cultural point of view, an economic point of view, political point of view. And so what we're looking for out of this summit is really a strong declaration in favor of women and girls. And here are the issues. If you take health, for example, an African woman giving birth on the continent is 100 times more likely to die in childbirth than a woman giving birth in Europe. That's the equivalent of about 54 taxis, having an accident and killing everybody on board every single day. So it's a lot of people that are dying in childbirth. With health, it's the same thing again. Less than half of the girls who should be in school are actually in school. And if they're lucky enough to be in school, they're spending the day fetching water and firewood. So again, that talks to other policy interventions that are required as far as energy poverty, as far as clean water and sanitation. And then there's agriculture, which is a huge sector in Africa because 75% of our people rely on agriculture for their livelihood. And yet you find that acre for acre, a woman farmer is producing much less, about by 30%, than a man farmer. And the reasons are simple and pretty well known. First of all, she probably doesn't own the land that she's farming on, and if she doesn't own the land, then she doesn't have access to credit because she doesn't have the collateral to support that. Extension service, technical assistance and training, same thing. The extension workers, the trainers, will go to the men farmers before they go to the woman farmer. So and maybe by the time they get to her, she's fending for her family. So we're looking at policy interventions, that really that underpin a strong declaration, from the point of view of agriculture, security of tenure for women, access to credit. In other words, creating an environment that makes it possible for the financial institutions to provide credit for women at an affordable, rate. Targeted budgets in health, in agriculture that really focus on women and girls to empower them. Because what we found is that when you empower women, actually the benefits don't just accrue to the women and girls, the benefits accrue to all of society. So it's about economic transformation.
That's a lot. That's a lot you're trying to push through. Ms. Mthathu, what is Oxfam trying to get out of this summit?
Yeah. So, in addition to what my colleague has just mentioned about it's bold that the African Union has declared this year as the year of women's empowerment. And in addition to the issues she has raised, we are also bringing the issue of the effects of climate change on the women that my colleague has mentioned, who, as the statistics say, are feeding, producing and providing food. At least 70% of the food in the continent is produced by small-scale, particularly women farmers. And so it's important that all of the issues are addressed around access to land and access to capital, but also a real recognition that climate change is undermining the potential of particularly women small-scale farmers to adapt and to continue with the contribution they are making to feeding the continent. So the climate change issue is an additional issue for us. But we, as a humanitarian organization as well, we are particularly concerned about the emerging crisis in Burundi. We do feel that it's important that the AU prevents the situation in Burundi from escalating beyond where it already is. It's important that tough measures are agreed that will arrest the crisis. As an organization that's on the ground in Burundi, we are seeing the massive displacement of people who are fleeing from fear that the situation will escalate into a fully blown civil war. And the fact that it's difficult for humanitarian organizations to deliver aid to people who are going hungry as a result of the displacement. So it's possible to arrest the situation. The AU needs to act. Leadership is needed. The other issue also around peace and security is the forgotten issue of South Sudan. By July, again, we're on the ground in South Sudan working with displaced people. And by July, we estimate that nearly 4.6 million people will be going hungry already. 3.6 million people who've been displaced by the war are going hungry. So there's a massive humanitarian crisis, and it's important that the AU puts greater pressure on the warring parties to cease the hostilities and to restore peace in South Sudan.